Welcome to Red Hot Communication, where we answer questions like, are you fire, ice, or too nice? Our shows focus on helping you become an extraordinary communicator, all the way from the boardroom to the bedroom. I'm your host, Brenda Williams, and I want to welcome all of you for joining us. And now I'd like to introduce you to Brett Deister, my co-host. Welcome, Brett.
Hello, everybody. I'm Brett Deister, and if you don't know, I host my own podcast called Digital Coffee Podcast, where I talk about tech, marketing, and gaming, all in one little bite-sized electronic cup of coffee. But anyways, this show is designed for all of you guys, and for all of you that work, and I'm pretty sure all of you actually do work, or trying to find work at least. But it's designed for you, and we are here because, sometimes you guys are busy, you just don't have time to do all this, self-learning and becoming better. I mean, better is always hard. So what we want, our primary focus is to meet your needs, provide, tangible tips, and as well to help you excel in your life and business. Since I know all of you want to do that, I want to do that. And we invite you to engage and email us, call us, ask us questions, concerns, anything else that you have on your mind. We will do our best to answer it for you, and we'll address all your challenges next show. So, Brenda, what's going on with this episode today?
Well, today's podcast is focused on removing hidden obstacles to your success. And we're going to see how this goes. It could be part 1 and part 2, because there's a lot of stories involved to get the point across. And they're real tangible stories, real stories that I've experienced over the last 25 years. I've had the opportunity to coach and mentor thousands of people, and I've heard stories about their successes and their failures. And I realized over the years they all tied back to a common theme, and that was the ability to communicate. And so I always like to ask, who's on the phone? Are you a business owner trying to increase productivity and create a more collaborative workforce? And if so, again, it's about communication, inspiring the team. If you're a manager, you got to motivate. You got to create loyalty, trust, respect within your team. Ties back to communication again. If you're an employee, like some of the people I'll share with you today, some of their stories, it's about collaborating and enjoying your job, communicating with your peers, maybe your boss and external clients. And maybe you're just looking to increase your personal development. Maybe you're a role model leading and guiding your children, maybe some of your family members, and just looking to raise kids that are higher producing adults in this world. I get a lot of calls from parents these days saying, help me. But the conversation is the relationship. And so everything we talk about ties back to communication, how to relate to everyone around you. And in many cases, that means really taking a close look at how you're showing up, how you are thinking about those people and situations internally, your internal dialogue, as well as how you communicate externally. So right now we're going to be talking about the internal communication. In the upcoming podcast, we'll be shifting gears and talking about external communication, because both of them are crucial to building these types of relationships that will get you more happiness and success with less stress. That is what we're all looking for, right? Happiness, success, and less stress.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe someone are looking for more stress. Maybe they just like hurting themselves. You never really know about that one.
Well, I haven't met too many people like that do it intentionally, at least.
Fair enough.
Some of us do it without realizing it. And that's really what this is about. It's about removing those hidden obstacles. It's about recognizing, why do you have stress? Why do you have challenges? And what's keeping you from getting everything you want in life? And many, many times, it's our internal thinking. And so being aware of our thoughts, both conscious and subconscious, is where it all begins. Our conscious thoughts are when we're logically awake and very aware and thinking. And our subconscious thoughts are when we're not really paying attention. And believe it or not, those are the thoughts that really drive us. They influence our actions and our feelings. And we're not fully aware of those subconscious thoughts. And they really drive our decisions and how we react to things, people, situations in life. And so today we're going to be talking a little bit about what are some of those subconscious thoughts, those maybe hidden beliefs and assumptions, interpretations, and gremlins that we're not aware of. And when you start creating that awareness, you can change the game. Life gets easier, you're less stressed, and your relationships become extraordinary. So think of these energy blocks. You can call them energy blocks. You can call them hidden roadblocks. So you can just call them the big four energy blocks. Think of them as something being packed in a suitcase. They come in four, and we carry them around with us. They dictate how we see the world. And in so many cases, Brett, they're holding us back. They're limiting us. And we don't even see it. I didn't even know about these before I started doing this work. I was just on automatic pilot. And these thoughts, these beliefs, are things that we learn as a child. And they become who we are. So we don't even recognize what's happening. So today we're going to create an awareness around the first energy block, which is a limiting belief. So let me tell you a little bit about how limiting beliefs can really create our reality. First, it's understanding that these are filters. And when we're talking, we're having a dialogue with somebody else, it's what's being said. I might say something to you, Brett, and you're thinking about that. You might not hear exactly what I said, because you might have a belief or make an interpretation that's going to cause you to have your bias, to make your own assumptions. You're going to look at your past experiences and react or respond to what I just said. Have you ever had a miscommunication?
No. I have been perfect in my communication with everybody. Everybody else is the one that miscommunicates with me.
And how many of you out there feel that same way? It's them, it's not me. But how often are we really listening? That's going to be one of our upcoming podcasts, is to talk about active listening, to make sure you get clarity, acknowledge, validate, so that you have the skills to really truly know what other people are telling you. And sometimes that comes through body language, the tone of voice they use, the words they use, their expressions. And sometimes it's what they're not saying. Have you ever tapped into your intuition and said, oh, I'm not getting the full picture here. Something's going on. I'm not really getting it all.
Yeah, most times I try to trust that, especially with communication. You can really tell you a lot what's going on in the background if you actually sometimes you're wrong. I even admit that sometimes I'm off, but at least what I've noticed at least points me into some type of direction of what's going on, where I'm like, something's not right about this. And then I ask the question and then I get the answer, usually.
Yeah, and some of us will tap into that intuition and make an interpretation about what we're hearing or not hearing, and we don't follow up with a good question. And we create these stories in our head, like, oh, so-and-so doesn't like me, or they're not listening, or they don't believe me, or they're not on board. And we create these things that aren't even happening, right? Or we're not listening and we have miscommunications because we weren't clear in how we communicated. But the energy blocks will tie into all of this. And it's the filters. What we say isn't always what is heard. So tapping into many, many things are part of communicating. And most of this we're not taught in school. We learn from our role models. And that's where our beliefs come from. They go back to childhood. And they are very strong for us. You know, we believe that our beliefs are gospel. So the definition of a limiting belief is something that you accept about life, about yourself, and about your world that limits you in some way. So I'm going to put this into theory and talk about how this can keep you from reaching your full potential. But the good news is, once you become aware of these, if you're willing to open up and challenge your perspectives, you can change your approach and you can change your perspectives. You can change your thoughts, and sometimes you can choose to change your beliefs. So I'm going to give you some tools and tips on how to do that so you can start practicing right away. But first, let me just explain what they are and why you would even care. So first of all, let's talk about an actual example. I don't know if you remember this, but many, many years ago they said you couldn't run a 4-minute mile. Did you ever hear about that? That was quite a while ago.
No, but that just seems absurd because I'm pretty sure someone's like, challenge accepted, and trying to do it.
Well, what's really absurd is many years ago people believed that. And doctors even said it would be unsafe, it would be dangerous to attempt to run anything under a 4-minute mile. And people believed that for many, many years. This goes way back, before you and I actually. And what's fascinating is it took that one person to challenge that limiting belief, to say, I believe it's possible, and I think I can do it. And what's really fascinating about that story is once that person believed it, he accomplished it. And once he accomplished it, everybody else got behind him and said, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So what we believe is possible can make a very big difference in what we're willing to take on, the challenges that we're willing to encounter, and how hard we try. So let me ask you a question. I'm going to share a belief with you, or a situation. And you tell me what's the first thought that comes up for you when I make this statement. Brett's ready to take on the challenge. I can see it in his face.
I am.
So what thoughts come up for you when I say, you hear there's a job opportunity or promotion in your company and it pays $25,000 more a year?
I really want to go after it.
You want to go after it. So what do?
Find ways of trying to get my name brought up in that conversation all the time, because that's the best way of doing it. If I say I really want it, people would be like, well, he's just trying to get promoted. But if I have other people say it, then it makes it a little bit more validated that I should. So that probably means like working hard and also making good relationships with people.
So the first thing you would do is find people to get on board with you, and for them, like stakeholders that would promote you and help you win that opportunity. So that's a belief you have. What keeps you from going directly to the top dog and saying, I got this, I'm your guy?
Well, I mean, this is hypothetical, so I don't really know the actual hypothetical boss.
I'm putting Brett on the spot.
But, I mean, nothing would actually really stop you. I mean, I have been a little bold and done that before. Well, this is more of terrible, more negative ways of doing it. But I mean, there's nothing really stopping anybody. It's just my belief, I guess you could say, is people vouching for you beyond yourself is a little bit more of a way of validating the person. Like, maybe we should promote them instead. So
you say if someone else validates me, that would be a good thing.
Well, not really validate, because I know how hard I work. I think it's more of just giving counterexamples of, yes, he does this, or yes, he does that. I don't think validation probably is the right word. I think it's more of, the word, I can't say the word, but I don't even know what the word is.
See, I'm putting Brett on the spot, and I'm so tempted to go into a little coaching session with him right now, so you can all see what coaching is like, because you discover things about yourself and the words you use, and you don't even know it's there. And in a coaching session, you start spitting things out, and when you hear it, you're like, wow, I didn't even know I thought that. I didn't even know I felt that way. And you learn and discover so much about yourself that you never realized. So I'll share some real stories today as to how this stuff makes a difference. But in my speaking, I've spoken to, rooms of hundreds of people, and I ask this question. And some of the answers I get is, I would ask myself, what's it going to take to get that job? How many more hours a week would I have to work? I don't have a degree. I'm probably not capable. They probably wouldn't hire me. I don't have a degree. Or I don't have the experience, because if that's $25,000 more, I'm probably not qualified. So that may sound shocking to some of you, the people that are the more assertive go-getters that would just jump in there and go for it. But believe it or not, there's a lot of people, and I know you're out there, that will hesitate and think, what's that all about? And some of these energy blocks will get in our way. We'll question ourselves, can we really do this? Are we capable? So those are some of the answers I've gotten from so many people over the last several years. So another one, your friend asked you to take a big trip to your dream destination. And you're in a career you love, and it's for a 4-week trip. What's your thought?
Go for it.
Go for it. See, that's why I work with you, Brett.
I mean, if the company can't allow me to do something that would actually benefit them from taking a vacation, it probably isn't the best company to work for anyways. And I should just probably go anyways. It's a chance in a lifetime. I mean, you got to think about that. Like weighing cost-benefit analysis is the best way of saying it. I would go for it. I would ask. I would persuade them, being like, look, if you do this, I'll be more relaxed, less stressed, and more productive, and giving the positives of why I should go on this.
Awesome. Now, what would you do if they said no?
Go anyways. I'd be like, yeah, well, I guess I'm sick for 4 weeks.
So basically, you'd quit your job. Yeah. And what would your thought be after you quit your job?
It would be, well, that probably wasn't the best place anyways. They wouldn't allow me to go because they didn't really, maybe they just didn't think I was a great employee anyways. That's why they said no. Mm-hmm. And there are probably other opportunities out there. But I mean, if it's a chance in a lifetime thing, I think you would go after that than stay at a job that says no to your wants. And
do you know which generation you're in? Are you a millennial?
Yeah, I'm a millennial.
Okay. So Brett's a millennial, and I'm a baby boomer / millennial. Like, I'm on the border. So I kind of understand both.
Well, Gen X, because millennials are after Gen X.
Okay, so I'm Gen X. Gen X and baby boomer. I'm on the border. And then you're a millennial.
Yeah.
Okay. So the mindset, I've spoken on this quite often, but it's been a while. The mindset of the younger generations is very different. Now, mind you, I have that same mindset. I had the confidence. I've taken 2 8-month sabbaticals in my life. And I left jobs. I took 8 months off, which is kind of unheard of in the U.S. for many people. But I had to have something happen. I couldn't have a limiting belief. Because one side of the coin, people were saying, oh my goodness, how can you leave your job for 8 months? How are you going to pay your bills? What if you can't get another job? That can be a limiting belief. You have to have the tenacity to fight off your inner critic, your gremlin that says, what if I don't get another job? What if I run out of money? How will I pay my bills? And believe it or not, more often than not, the people that I talk to in my speaking events will go to the thing of, oh, I can't leave my job for that long. Oh, I have kids. I have a family. I can't leave them either. Oh, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. It's not possible. So congratulations, because you and I are in a very small percentage of the people that will take the risk and take the challenge on. And I will not change my traveling around the world for anything on this earth. I'll never regret taking those sabbaticals. It's the best thing I ever did. And I encourage all of you, next time you have a great opportunity, like he said, a chance of a lifetime, go for it. And ask yourself, am I creating a limiting belief? Do you think they could do without you at work for a little bit? Do you think the company's going to dissolve if you go on a long trip? Or will they just work it out and lump through it? And then you'll say, I've heard people say, oh, well, they'd fire me. Well, is it worth the trip of a lifetime? to go find another career. So I know that others will say, well, I got to pay my bills. We'll always come up with a logical excuse. Sounds really good. It's a story we create. But I can tell you, I know people that have taken on the challenge, that have left careers, or taken a break and been able to come back. And it's the happiest thing they've ever done. So when you start challenging our limiting beliefs, it is a game changer. You get to do things like that. So let me tell you a little bit about some real stories and how this can relate back to the business world. I was working with one of my favorite clients who I really am proud of what he's accomplished in the last year. We'll call him David. And David came to me because he was unhappy in his career, having some, wanted a promotion, wanted something new. It wasn't happening, was having some challenges with people, was kind of like burnt out, disgusted with some of the people he was working with, thought that they were kind of difficult to work with, and wasn't really enjoying going to work. Can anybody out there relate to this? Because I've heard it before. He's not alone. And I've even been there. I've had times where my career was not enjoyable. So how do you change that? First, you got to know a little bit about David. David is a go-getter, very successful, has done very well in his career over the years, very educated, very disciplined, and someone who really takes on the challenge, someone who takes pride in getting results. So let's say he has a more dominant personality, like I'm going to be in control of what happens. So he has a checklist. He has an agenda. He's all about getting results. And he takes great pride in getting results. And I know there's a lot of controllers that are listening to this right now. Controller, dominant, assertive personalities. Some would call us aggressive, but I like to say assertive. And there's pros and cons to that personality, which we'll get into in another podcast. But just know that it does make a difference sometimes. So knowing your own personality style and the people you work with and interface with, knowing their personality style can make a big difference in how you relate and communicate to them. But let's just talk about David for a minute. David ran some mission-critical projects, and he was very focused. He was known for, bringing in multi-million-dollar projects, within, quicker than they expected and under budget. So very well respected from that standpoint. So he has this very large project that's about to come to, a close, and he's got several pieces of data that he needs from a coworker. And he's waiting for that person to deliver it. It's a very tight deadline. He comes into work and he's very focused, very structured. He gets his checklist out and he's got his coffee and his head's down. Let's wrap this project up. He looks around and he sees that person that he's waiting to deliver those pieces of the pie. And that person's walking around with a cup of coffee, visiting with people in the office, chatting, laughing. And he looks up at her. What do you think his thoughts were?
Get to work, you slacker.
And how many of you are thinking the same thing right now, especially the controller, overachiever personalities? When are you going to get to work? How can you do this? Don't you know we've got things to deliver? I mean, at times you wanted to go choke her. And sometimes we can get really frustrated when we're working with people that do things differently than we do. So David's limiting belief was, if you weren't heads down focused, check, 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 and on top of every little piece of that project, going out and building relationships with people, and connecting with people, was not really at the top of his agenda. And Brett and I have laughed about this. We both joked because sometimes we are overachievers with our checklist. And we have to actually hit the pause button and say, hey, how you doing? So when Brett comes over to do the podcast, we just jump right in. And we're both cool with that because that's kind of how we fly.
I like to get the work done, but I also know that building relationships is really important. So, I'm the dual mind where I'm like, well, there is time to just, the work will get done type of a thing. I'm usually confident that it will always get done. So I will get my lazy moments to just basically have fun and just talk to people, because that's what it's all about.
It is all about that. And it's a huge, important thing to do. And I'm so glad you acknowledge that. And I have too. By doing this work, I've recognized that I have to take time. And I love people. I'm a coach. But when I'm in my task mode and my checklist mode, sometimes I tend to forget about that. Connecting with people, bonding with people, going to lunch, having fun on the weekend or in the evening is so crucial to your success in life. Not just your success, but happiness. So what was fascinating is when David took on the challenge that I gave him, and I asked him to shift and challenge his limiting belief, that being focused is not all that's important, that connecting with others is extremely crucial. He took on that challenge, unwillingly at first. But over a period of time, he started going to lunches with people. I taught him some communication skills and some active listening and some of the things we'll talk about in our future podcasts. And he really started applying it. He took it very seriously. And his game completely changed. He went from being disconnected, unhappy, stressed out, chasing people around to get what he needed in the office, to almost a 360, where people were now coming to him. He started helping people. He started mentoring others. Some of the naysayers and complainers with more negative personalities stopped coming around. People came to him for solution conversations, to talk about possibilities. He was helping them solve their problems. He started building relationships with people in higher level management, going to lunch, dinners, and actually enjoying it. When those relationships started to build, the dynamics of his role changed. He started being known as someone who mentored others, a leader that really cared. And he was the type of person people started to look up to. Since then, he's gotten a promotion. He was able to be asked to speak at a national conference. And he's thrilled with his new role. And when I can help someone go through that transformational process, just by challenging some of these limiting beliefs and taking a new approach, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. To see him live a happier life. Oh, and not to mention the stress. The stress that he used to have, chasing people around, it's gone. People come to him now. They like working with him. He's easier to get along with. They have more of a relationship. And so his world has completely changed. I'll give you another example. And this was from, let's just call her Jennifer. Jennifer was in a situation where she was an employee and her boss had asked her to take on a lot of roles and responsibilities. And she kept saying yes. She only called me after she was to a point where she was working 70 hours a week, waking up at night with anxiety. Have you ever had that happen? Or known anybody that says, I'm so stressed out at work, there's too much on my plate?
Known quite a few people. I actually used to be one of those people, but that was when I was volunteering. I over-volunteered. But then I figured out, I probably should not do that anymore. After my huge burnout, I was like, I need to stop saying yes to everything, because you can't do everything.
Well, and sometimes overachievers and controllers think they can. And sometimes they think they can do it better than everybody else. So they'll do it themselves.
I was never that way. It's just I never found someone that would actually do it. So I just did it because I was like, oh, I have time. And then look and go, no, I really don't have time.
It's midnight.
Yeah.
It's midnight. It's Saturday. It's Sunday. Can I get my life back? If there's any entrepreneurs out there, I know you can relate to this. I have to work on my own life balance. When you're running your own business, you can really take on the load.
Yes.
So, and your beliefs directly tie to that. Jennifer's belief was that if you didn't work long hours, you weren't putting in the effort. Guess where she learned that?
Parents?
Her parents. They were traditionalists, and they were loyal till the end. And they worked a lot of long hours, and they stayed at companies for 30 and 40 years, and you are loyal, and you do what it takes. And work, work, work. One of the reasons they worked so hard is back then, if you didn't work, you didn't eat. So they were so dedicated and disciplined. A little different mentality. And a different world, a different time. But she learned that work ethic was working long hours, and dedication was being there and doing whatever it took. She also learned that saying no was a sign of weakness. So what did she do?
She said yes to everything.
And that's what caused her to work 70 hours a week and go a little crazy. And that ties back to her limiting beliefs. Beliefs she learned at a young age she didn't even realize that she'd carried through into her adult life. And we all have these beliefs that once you challenge them, things can really change. And so what happened was, in working with her, I challenged that belief. And we worked on changing the dynamics of how she approached things. She started building rapport with her boss. She started connecting with people. She started networking with other departments. Now you have to be confident in your networking skills. And you have to learn how to approach people and how to make it a win-win situation. And when you can learn those skills, it changes everything. Like you said, getting the stakeholders, the people that validate me, that believe in me, my cheerleaders, you start building that team of people around you. So you see, Jennifer wasn't happy in her job. She wanted to do certain aspects of her job. But they had her doing a million other things she didn't really want to do, and it wasn't really her strength. And how many of you are doing things you do not enjoy doing?
Quite a bit.
Right? Especially these days. I mean, the business world, a lot of us are doing the jobs of two people. And so we get to a point where, before you know it, our role is kind of out of control. And so when you can remove your limiting belief and start approaching people in a different way, and learning that it's okay to say no, and changing your thoughts around how many hours a week you should work. Like, let's talk about some life balance and our health, which, you know, a lot of people let go these days. They say sitting is the new smoking. Mm-hmm. People are sitting at their desk 10 and 12 hours a day. And then their back starts hurting. They start having hip problems. I know I did the same thing as an entrepreneur. I was sitting too long. My back started bothering me. It's like real. It can affect your health. It's not just the stress. It's what happens to your body and your happiness and your joy. So important to say, do I really need to work 70 hours a week? And why am I doing that? Is there another way? Maybe asking for help, training some other people, learning when to say no. So let me tell you what was a big game changer for her. She thought her boss didn't care. And in the end, her boss didn't really realize what was on her plate. She kept saying yes, she kept delivering. He thought she had it all handled. It wasn't until she was ready for a breakdown that she had the conversation, and the dynamic started to change. Because she had made an assumption that he didn't care. So she stopped talking to him. When I had her challenge that assumption, and just for those of you that aren't aware, an assumption is an expectation that because something's happened to you in the past, it will happen again.
Oh, the old saying. Once you assume, you become I'm not going to say it, but we all know that assumption. We all know that common phrase of when you assume, you make you make yourself and someone else look like an idiot too. I paraphrased it terribly, but you get it.
Well, the thing is, I agree with you, Brett, and we've all done that, and many times without even realizing it. And in this case, she had made an assumption that her boss just didn't care. And in essence, he really didn't know. She hadn't been clear. She did not take the initiative. She stopped trying. And that is the biggest challenge with an assumption. If you think it won't work, you've tried it before, and it doesn't work, most people stop trying. It's a deadly, deadly path. Or even if you try, you only go into it haphazardly because you don't really believe it's going to work anyways. So your energy is kind of negative around it. So what happened with her is she didn't think he cared. And when I worked with her on her challenging these beliefs and her new communication skills, she started having daily meetings with her boss. She started letting him know exactly what she was doing. She learned how to present herself and express herself so that he knew what she was good at, what her career goals were, and what she truly wanted to do. And by building relationships in other departments, she was able to offload some of that work to other people that could support her. And then the best thing happened. They brought in some temporary help, and she got to manage those people. So she got some leadership skills. It's so simple when you really think about it. But you have to overcome the fear. Fear is behind a lot of these things. The fear in what we believe is possible, what we believe in ourselves, what we think of others. We create these crazy stories, and they become our destiny. I'm going to share one personal story with you, because this is something I think a lot of people that have ever been in the dating world can relate to.
Oh, the dating world.
The fun dating world. So I was single for a very long time, and I was in the dating world. And actually, I probably would have been voted the least likely to ever get married. But at the time, I didn't mind. I was having a lot of fun, traveling the world, enjoying life, and it didn't bother me. At least that's what I told myself. So it took me a while to meet somebody. I was very lucky. Once I started doing this work, I started believing it was possible. I started believing that the right person would come along, and I put it out to the universe. So I let people know what I was looking for. And a friend of mine actually met my husband on an airplane. But he almost wasn't my husband. The night we were going on our first big date, guess what happened?
You didn't want to go?
No, he showed up an hour and a half late.
Oh.
How do you think you'd respond to that when it comes to limiting beliefs and assumptions when you've been dating for 10, 15 years and you've met a lot of creeps?
That he doesn't really care.
That's your first thought. What do you think could be another thought?
That he is terrible with time management.
Well, that's one of them. An assumption would be, oh, he's like all the others. Why did I bother trying? Can't trust him. Now, what's really fascinating, by me doing this work myself, I realized that I had created a limiting belief, and I didn't even recognize it. As a child, my beloved grandmother, who had some challenges in her world, but used to say, and please forgive me, the only good man's a dead man, and you can't trust any of them. Now, can you imagine growing up with hearing that as a young child over and over again?
Well, since I'm a guy, it would be not very good because I am the gender, sex that she's talking about. And I would feel like, okay, I guess you want me dead.
But you know what's funny is we all grew up hearing things as children, and we don't really think about as adults. And we don't recognize that it's done something inside our belief system. It shows up in so many ways, and years later, we don't remember hearing that. We just know we have trust issues. So the first thing that came to my mind and my old default thinking was, oh, he can't be trusted. He doesn't care. Oh, he's like all the rest. I should have known. Why did I bother trying? What a jerk. Now that's a nice word for the podcast. I had a few other choice words that night.
I'm pretty sure you did.
But it was funny because I'd been doing this work and I took a moment to hit pause and challenge my beliefs and my perspectives. And this is how I shifted my thinking. I changed it to what could have happened. I thought he was a nice man. Maybe it was raining out. Maybe he'd gotten in a car accident. Then I started worrying. He joked with me about hearing some of his, he'd read a couple horoscopes that said he had met the woman of his dreams. And I thought, oh, maybe he just freaked out over those horoscopes. And then I thought, well, we've spent a lot of long nights together. Maybe he just fell asleep. And guess what had happened?
He fell asleep.
He'd fallen asleep. But the turmoil that I went through in my own mind for an hour and a half drove me crazy. And my anger and frustration built. And when that phone rang an hour and a half later, one of two things could have happened. I could have stuck to my old ways and told him to lose my number. He couldn't be trusted. And that would have been the end. But I learned by doing this work to swallow my ego, to challenge my beliefs, and to look at it from a different perspective. That maybe he was a really nice person. Maybe he just made a mistake. And if I gave him a second chance, maybe he would be who I thought he was. Now, mind you, I'm not recommending anybody out there as a pushover. When I swallowed my pride and my ego and said yes to the date, when he arrived, I did explain the value of an alarm clock. I also set the boundaries of how important time was to me and that this was unacceptable. And then I let it go. I didn't take it personally, which is a big part of this. And hence, I've now married my soulmate, which is a miracle.
But does he know the importance of an alarm clock?
Oh, yes. But what's funny is he still runs late for a lot of things because his beliefs are different than mine. I am about being on time, actually being early. It's a pet peeve of mine. He doesn't take that so seriously. And you know what? We're going to run into people that don't think the way we think. They don't have the beliefs we have. And it's going to cause friction. It's going to cause conflict. And that's why this communication stuff is so crucial. It's so important. We're going to talk about how to set boundaries in future podcasts. We're going to talk about how to have difficult conversations like the one I had to have. We're going to talk about how to challenge your two other energy blocks, your interpretations and your gremlins, so that you can create a better path in life. And whether that's a job promotion, inspiring others, dealing with difficult people, it all will make a difference. For me, that's a personal story that really changed my life. It changed my path. It changed my world. And it was for the better. But that night was a crucial turning point that could have gone the opposite direction. And so often, we do that in our lives without realizing it.
Are you saying it's subconscious?
We don't see it. We just don't see it. So what I want to do is give you a couple questions to ask yourself over the next week before you hear the next podcast. Challenge yourself about your limiting beliefs. Now remember, a limiting belief is something that you accept about your life, about yourself, about your world that limits you in some way. Think about your beliefs and ask yourself, is this serving me? And where did I get that idea? Sometimes you have to step back and challenge your thinking by asking others, what's your belief around this situation? Not that you definitely want to take on their belief, but it's a way to look at other perspectives. It's really fascinating. And when you do it with curiosity and you recognize so many people think about life differently than you do, it can open up the world to possibilities and opportunities. It can also help you understand where other people are coming from, which in essence, will help you be a better communicator. Because it's not all about what you think. You got to understand where others are coming from. So when it comes to your assumptions, ask yourself, how true do I believe that is? An assumption is an expectation that because something's happened in the past, it will happen again. How true do I really believe that is? And even if your answer is, oh, I really believe it's true, take a moment to challenge that thought and give it a try with all of your heart, all of your soul, with 200% effort. And when you do that and you change your energy around it, the dynamics will change in your approach. In essence, it changes your relationships. That's how Jennifer got her opportunity to move into leadership. And David got his promotion with an opportunity to connect with others at a deeper level. Something that was a real amazing experience for him. So ask yourself as you go forward in your day, what is it that I want more of? And how could my limiting beliefs and assumptions be holding me back? So we'll end on that for today. Join us for part 2, where we're going to move into the other energy blocks. And watch for the podcast show notes. Contact us. Questions, comments, challenges. I want to speak to your needs to help you excel in life. The website is academyforleadershipcommunication.com. The phone number is 714-283-1186. And if you're interested in life and career coaching, you can go to yourcoachingsolution.com. All of that's in the show notes on the podcast. And we look forward to hearing from you. So tune in next week. Anything you want to add, Brett?
Yes, be sure to subscribe to this podcast as well so you never miss an episode. That's always a good thing because you don't want to miss those tidbits or those nuggets of truth, I guess you could say. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube as well, and LinkedIn for more extra content that's actually not on here. Extra nuggets of truth as well. So, yeah, guys, have a great week and see you next week. Later.